The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is Building Products of the Future Using the Customer Lifecycle Model. And our guest speaker today is Sandeep Dasgupta. He's the director with MySys. Sandeep Dasgupta is a passionate technologist with over 22 years in the industry. He has been part of various interesting experiences in engineering and technology, ranging from building India's first online stock exchange, designing and developing platform-independent products in the early 90s, architecting and developing zero-latency enterprise products at the HP Advanced Technology Labs, being lead architect for one of the world's top-selling retail banking products, heading engineering for industry-leading online real-time trading products, to designing best-of-breed frameworks for agile engineering. Sandeep currently heads development for the Fusion Banking product line at MySys, a leading provider of financial software products. So, without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Aradhana. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you all and share my ideas and thoughts about this topic. Even though I'm kind of currently very closely associated with the banking industry, and I have been mainly part of financial products in my experience so far, I'll kind of try to keep this as generic as possible and maybe use banking as an occasional example, but whatever I kind of talk about would be applicable to almost any area that is that needs product development today. So without further ado, let me go to the areas I want to touch upon. That's the next slide. Okay, we will try to cover these areas as far as possible today. We will first understand what we mean by the customer lifecycle model and kind of what are the various views of different researchers and other organizations who have looked at this model or have tried to use this model. And then we'll look at how that applies to product strategy today and what demands it places on the technology side of the product strategy. The key here is that for building products, you have to have a long-term view. And in that long-term view, not only should the business aspect be covered, which is where the customer lifecycle model comes in, but the practical possibilities of developing such products also need to be looked at, right? And that is where the technology angle comes in, or the platform angle comes in. And unless you have sort of a strategy which for the platform and technology which matches your business strategy, a lot of long-term product development roadmaps go off track because you suddenly realize that what you're trying to build is not supported by the technology or the platform you're using. So that is what I'm going to concentrate on. How do you make the two match? And we will kind of explore that a little more in the sense that why does this place a different kind of demand on the technology strategy or the architecture roadmap that products need to have? And what are some of the best practices in designing for these architectures? I have not put too many slides on these areas because it's a very broad topic and it's very, very specific to the area that we are talking about, to different products, to different technologies and architectures. So I've kept it very generic. I'll talk about the concepts behind it, and if needed, if there are questions around it, we can go deeper into the technical details. But I will try to keep everything at a high level and talk about the concepts so that it's equally and generically applicable to whatever you might be interested in or you might be doing today. And at the end, I'll talk about some sort of experiences and challenges that I have faced. Again, very generic. It may depend on what you are going through or what any organization is trying to build, but some of these should sound familiar to most of you. Okay, so with that, let's move to the trying to understand the customer lifecycle model as we kind of define it, right? So I've kind of tried to begin with a very common example, right? I mean, what used to be the traditional customer engagement model for eating out, for example, right? If you go back 10 years, the model used to be what we are seeing today. It used to be a, actually, I'll just wait for the screen to refresh, I think. I don't see it on the. Okay, I don't know whether the slides are getting refreshed, so let me check that first. Okay, I think it's back now, so let me continue. Like I was saying, we are looking at the customer engagement model that used to be in vogue maybe 10 years back, where to eat out, you would kind of either know about some nearby restaurants or have heard about some nearby restaurants. So you would head to that restaurant and kind of finish your meal, right? And that was it. It was a very straightforward kind of direct transactional engagement model, right? Most of you would realize that that's not how it works today, right? So the way it works today is what you see here on the next slide, right? So if you are kind of able to recognize this, this is sort of one of the pages from the popular site Zomato.com, which is used these days for kind of finding out where you want to eat out or finding the best place nearby to eat, right? And it is a very complex model, and it has a lot of information here, and it kind of caters to a very different engagement model, right? So if we look at this in detail, and I'll wait for the screen to refresh again, I think it's doing that now. Okay, so if you try to sort of analyze this kind of a web page, right, you'll see certain common patterns and trends across any such business or any such website that you come across. Right? So I have kind of highlighted the areas that we can see here, and at the top left corner, if you see, I have put a discover tab sort of, and basically that's the capability to search using different metadata or very specific things that you might be looking for, right? It might be currently, what the screen I've shown is restaurants in the Koramangala area in Bangalore, which is one of the popular eat out areas, right? So you could search for location, you could search for type of restaurant, you could search for restaurants with the highest ratings and all that. So that's kind of how you discover the best place to eat. And then if you see on the top right side, I have two blobs saying engage and explore, right? So these are sort of pointing to the fact that now you use engagement with the customer to give the capability to explore options and to find out other things or other kinds of necessities a customer might have. You might even kind of plant the seed in the customer's mind about things which the customer never thought that they needed. Right? So this is called kind of building the need rather than catering to a need. So engage and explore are basically how do you get ratings and feedback from the customer, and how do you publish those back, or how do you kind of use that data to push your products to the customer. So if you see on this website, you have an area where you can provide your review or your rating. So that's how you're engaging the customer to give you inputs into the experience. And then you are using the same data to show the number of reviews, the number of wish lists, the rating at the top. If you see at the top right corner, there's a 3.7 out of 5 rating. So you're using the engagement data to give the capability to the customer to explore and find kind of other things about this product which they wouldn't have known otherwise, right? In the traditional model, they would have only known their own experience. They wouldn't have known what 800 other viewers or diners have faced in this restaurant. Right? So that's the engage and explore model. And all of these kind of lead you to the buy, which is basically the center of the page. And it kind of either is used to kind of make your decision for you to buy, or upsell or cross-sell. You might have come to buy one thing, but using discover, engage, and explore, you could end up being sold more than you kind of came in for. So that's the concept, and I spent a little bit of time here because I wanted the concept to be very clear, and because this will be the basis of what I'll be using to explain what we're going to talk about next. So hopefully that kind of brings out the aspects that we're talking about, and now going forward we'll see the same thing in another very popular area, right? So this website should be very familiar to all of you again, and this is basically Amazon.com. And if you see, it's the exact same model. Again, you have the same discover, explore, buy, engage kind of interactions going on between the product and the company, and the customer, right? So again, you are using feedback from the customer and data from the customer to let the customer discover and explore and then make a buying decision. And one extra thing that you see with Amazon is that they also take care of your previous customer history to sort of propose things that you might want to buy next, right? And I think sites like Zomato have not tried doing that yet, but that's another level of engagement that you can get to. And that's equally applicable to any area that we are talking about. So what I'm trying to show here is that this model is independent of the kind of product or the the business model or the area in which you are building products, right? It's equally applicable to any product that you're trying to build, because the way the customer engages with the product experience has fundamentally changed, and it's kind of driving the industry as we go forward. Now, a lot of researchers like Forrester have been studying this model, and you will find that there are different ways that this model is explained, but I am kind of sort of sticking to the Forrester model here. And if you go to Forrester research blogs and website, you would find a much more detailed explanation of each of these areas. But this is how they categorize the different stages of the customer engagement lifecycle, right? And that's how I have been kind of naming them in the last two sites that we looked at. And they call it the discover, explore, buy, and engage, right? And obviously, I think these are self-explanatory, but just to go over it once again, discover is basically where you, instead of having the customer sort of decide on something and come and buy it, you sort of lead the customer to a buying decision, right? So discovery is more like giving them multiple options, giving them multiple points of view, giving them feedback from other customers, giving them maybe pricing choices, all kinds of things that you can give to a customer to make them sort of feel that they have explored all possible options before making a buying decision, right? And once you have the discover handled, you can go a deeper level beyond that and go to the explore level, right? So again, the explore level is very inherently visible in most online purchase sites these days, right? So you can go into Amazon and sort of read parts of a book. You can go into Flipkart and look up the complete specification of the product you're about to buy. Right? You can go into maybe some of the popular furniture retail stores or whatever, and look at the details of colors available or the materials that are being used and all of that. So the explore option is basically allowing you to go deeper. In Zomato, we saw that they have pictures of the insides of a restaurant. They have menu items. They have facilities available. Do you have parking? Do you have sort of capability to rent a hall inside the restaurant or whatever, right? So it allows you to explore different options within the set that you are trying to decide on. And obviously, discover and explore, with the wealth of information that they give you, they actually make the buying decision much more sort of, it's a sort of automated, it is kind of leading you blindfold to your buying decision. Instead of you kind of deciding right away, you kind of explore and go into a journey of exploration, and then you come to a choice that you make. And then that doesn't end, the key is that doesn't end the cycle, right? And by the way, if you see, this is a continuous loop. It doesn't end anywhere. So the key here is, after the buying decision has been made, how do you use the customer to become your, become a sort of model, or become a model customer for you, which you can then showcase to other customers and get more business? Or how do you make the customer sort of brand ambassador for your product? How do you get feedback from the customer so that you can improve the product? How do you use the customer's own buying history to get closer to the customer and give him or her more choices and more buying decisions, right? So that's where the engage cycle comes in, where you get feedback data from the customer, where you get sort of real-time updates from the customer, where you feedback updates and messages from other customers to this customer, and you kind of mash up all of that stuff to make sure that the customer is fully engaged. They feel that they are part of your product life cycle. They feel that the product is catering to exactly what they need. They feel that all their friends are buying the same product. They feel that they are part of an elite social circle who's buying this product. So all of that comes out of the engagement model. Right? So interestingly, I've so far not really talked about technology at all, and the reason I have done that is because, like I said, technology is nothing but a way to kind of transform the business needs into sort of product reality or a technical reality, right? So what we've tried to do so far is we have to try to understand the business model behind this whole customer lifecycle thing, and how each of these areas of the lifecycle has a different kind of interaction with the customer, right? So now that's the area we need to focus on to get to the technical side of things, right? So if you now look at this circle again, you will realize, and we'll go on and talk a little more deeper about that in the next 2 slides. But if you think about it, you will realize that the discover phase needs different capabilities from a product compared to the buy phase, right? The explore phase needs a slightly different set of capabilities than the engage phase. The engage, discover, and explore may be very sort of closely knit. They may need similar capabilities, but the buy part definitely needs a lot more or a set of things that engage, discover, and explore may not need. So if we go back to the Amazon model, right, the buy phase actually not only needs a transactional system where you can kind of order for a book and it would kind of record your order and process the order, but you also need the capability to be interacting with your banks and credit card providers to be able to do the monetary part of the transaction. More importantly, you need a complete integration with a supply chain and a logistics model behind the scenes, right? So the buy part needs to integrate and work with all of these kind of areas, which the engage, discover, and explore do not need to do, right? But interestingly, what you get in engage and explore would be a result of what you're doing in buy, because if your logistics fails, or if your product is not doing a good job of integrating with the credit card provider and either rejecting transactions or delaying transactions or something like that, then obviously the engage part will not work well, because people will give you negative comments. You'll start getting lower votes and all that. So they need different capabilities, but all of them have to work together in order to keep your customer happy, right? So that's the theme I want you to keep in mind, that even though these parts of the engagement lifecycle need different capabilities, they all have to finally work together to give you a customer experience that is great or out of the world or differentiated or whatever you want to call it. And that's the only way you will build better products and you will build products for the future. So now, coming back to the topic of the discussion, why did I say that this is necessary for products of the future? What we are seeing today, and that's what I was kind of also explaining, that we are seeing a complete different way of engagement between customers and products, right? And unless you are ahead of this game and you know that you are able to cover all these aspects of an engagement model and your products are built for that, you are going to fall behind competition. You are going to become outdated. And remember, there is a whole set of young customers in the pipeline who are coming on and who are starting to use all these modern technologies, mobile capabilities and all that, and becoming a large chunk of the customer base. And if you cannot give them what they need in these different phases of the engagement cycle, then the product has very little chance of succeeding in the future. A bank, for example, may have done well by just providing a transactional system that used to work from a brick and mortar branch, but today that's not going to make them the best bank in the next 10 years. So let's use that, or let's kind of move on to talking about what would it mean for a banking product to be able to provide all these areas, right? And slowly lead into the question of technology. So if we start with the discover phase, right? What does a banking product there need today to be able to be future-proof, to be able to kind of help customers discover products in the banking industry? And by the way, like I said, I'm using banking as an example, but you would find that you can fit this into any industry or product that you can think of. It is the same concept. There is no difference. So a bank, now today a bank, or going forward, or for the future, a bank definitely needs social media integration to be able to sort of either push discovery to social media channels or use social media channels to pull customers into their products, right? So you need to have a Facebook page, you need to be able to integrate with Twitter and all that, so that customers kind of get led to your bank or get led to the loans that a bank is providing or the new kind of banking models that you are putting in place. Okay, and the other thing to note is that all of this has to happen as part of your long-term strategy, as we already talked about, right? It cannot be bolted on later, because that is where a lot of problems come in, because people don't kind of design for this upfront, and when it is time to kind of build these kind of capabilities, they realize that the platform doesn't support this, or the technology choices they have made don't support it. So going back to the Discover model, other than social media integration, there is a huge need for customer analytics and customer analytics driven marketing for being able to run the Discover phase of your strategy. And you have to use the social media integration and the customer analytics marketing to be able to do auto upsells and kind of cross sells and all that, right? So that's the discovery part. On the explore side, if you want to be a modern bank, you need to be able to provide customer experience feedback, right? And this could be again through a social media channel, it could be at the branch, it could be online, it could be over phone, whatever, right? And that experience needs to then feedback into your social media and your customer analytics to also feed the discover phase of the product. You need to be able to provide try before you buy kind of capabilities, just like online retailers are doing today. You should be able to kind of give them an experience of what happens if I get into a loan engagement with a bank. How would it how would the model flow? What would I need to do? And you would see these days banks are actually putting up videos on their websites to run you through the whole experience of a particular product, to give you a lot of details about the features of the product and all that. So this is in order to give you a feel of the product even before you have bought it, right? This is similar to be able to walk in, similar to be able to walk around a street on Google Maps, or to be able to see the inside of a restaurant on Zomato before you have kind of gone to the restaurant. So it's the same concept here. Then a bank needs to be able to provide customized product packaging. So it cannot say that this is the only product model we have and we kind of don't support anything else. They should be able to customize products for different needs, for different sort of categories of customers and different kind of situations the customers may be in. And most importantly, they need to be able to provide this across multiple channels. So you have to have a mobile banking capability. You have to have online banking capability. You have to be able to do maybe seamless banking between channels. It's not just multiple channels. You may actually start a transaction on one channel. I may start something on my mobile and then walk into the actual bank branch and complete it. So there should be multiple channels, and these multiple channels have to be sort of seamlessly integrated. On the buy side, it's easy. I mean, that we all know what the buy side of a bank needs. It definitely needs a sort of very robust transaction banking capability. It needs to be always on 24/7. It actually, and this is something I already talked about, it should provide equal power on all channels, right? So for example, you would see that as we go along, if you have any experience with using a mobile app for your bank, you would see that over the years, more and more products and features have slowly been moving on to the mobile app, right? In the beginning, most banks would only allow you to sort of inquire on your accounts from your mobile application or your mobile banking site. A little later, they started allowing you to do maybe online transactions, right? Today, most banking applications, most banking phone applications allow you to do everything that you would be able to do maybe at a branch with a real bank representative. Right? It allows you to do maybe interbank transfers, NEFT transactions, pay credit card bills, pay utility bills, request for a checkbook, anything that you would want to do at or which you would only be able to do at the branch. Most of them even allow you to open FDs, close FDs, all of that, right? So you don't really need to go to a bank, or you don't even need to log in to the website. You can do everything. You can do everything on your phone. So that's what I mean by equal power on all channels. Social media, I mean, and then that's the buy part. If you go to engage, it's very similar to, I mean, it's kind of everything else put together from the discover and explore stages. So you do need social media integration, you need customer feedback, and again, you need cross-channel integration, and you need to be able to sort of slice and dice data from different channels to keep the engagement sort of seamless, right? For example, some of the products we are trying to build for our customers today at MySys allow you to sort of make a buying decision on your phone, and I'm sure you would have done this in other industries. So you kind of create a package for yourself on the phone saying, this is the kind of loan I want. I want this kind of sort of payment period. I want a loan for either an automobile or for a home. I want an EMI-based loan, and this is the maximum loan amount I need. So you create the package and you send it off to the bank on your phone channel, and it's all ready and kind of waiting for you when you walk into the bank, and you just have to sign the papers, right? So that's how you engage across channels. So the customer really doesn't have to spend time at the bank branch sitting down and filling paperwork or talking to customer representative about the details of the loan that they want. They do all that on an online banking channel, and they just go in to sign the papers. So those are the kind of things that are happening, you know, each of these different phases of a life cycle. So what does that mean to the product strategy, right? And this is where it finally comes together, and it kind of it needs to be sort of woven into the platform, and it needs to be sort of future safe as part of your platform and technology strategy, right? So obviously, the bottom line is that the products built around the customer lifecycle strategy would be future safe. So, and the second important point is they have to cover all phases of the life cycle, right? So you cannot, today, you cannot sort of compete with your competitors in the market if you are not really covering all phases of the life cycle. If you say that I'll build a great buy part platform, which I'll maybe, let's say again going back to the banking model, I have a great transactional banking system which customers can use either from the branch or the online model, and it's the fastest, it gives me the best transaction capabilities, it's safe, it's sort of able to cater to millions of customers, but you don't have the engage part of the product handled, right? You will still not be successful because your customer engagement will not be fulfilled to the extent that some of your competitors might be doing. So even though their buy experience would be great, you may not be able to cover the engage, discover, or explore phases. So each of these phases has to be supported by your product. And you need to be aware of this, and you need to plan and strategize for that. The third thing is, like I said before, all of these areas of your product need to integrate. And this is where the technology and the platform strategies need to be thought out carefully, because both data and services have to be able to talk to each other across these platforms. And if you cannot integrate, you cannot really get maximum benefit out of this whole engagement life cycle, and you cannot really push each of these phases to drive your other phases. For example, if you are getting great engagement data, but you're not able to channelize that into your discover and explore phases, then it doesn't really help you much. You have great feedback from the customers. Most people are rating you high. Most people kind of want to do business with you and would like to introduce you to their friends, but you are not really integrated to Facebook, so they can't really recommend you on Facebook, for example, right? So that kind of destroys the whole power of all the engagement data that you're collecting. So that brings me to my final slide about the technology and architecture challenges, and sort of after that I'll have a few closing comments on experiences and challenges around this, right? So I think it's very clear, so this won't need too much of my time. We've already seen that each of these areas need different kind of capabilities, right? So I'm just kind of putting some technology terms here instead of the capabilities, general capabilities that we have talked about. And again, I'm keeping it very generic because we don't want to talk about specific technology vendors or platforms here. You can choose any of the areas or any of the vendors or platforms that have these capabilities. It's more important to know that you will need all of these capabilities, right? So for the discover phase or the discover part of your products, you will need business intelligence capability. We have already talked about it, but you will also need big data capability, because this is where you will be generating a lot of social media content, feeds, etc., and you would need to process that, right? For your engage part, you obviously need a great content management system, right? Because all the content that you're generating from your engage and your discover phase needs to now play into this part, and you should be able to lead a customer through an experience, a virtual experience of a product, for example, or they should be able to sort of browse through the different options available for products. They should be able to seamlessly pull up any kind of content, multimedia, etc., that you've put up on your website. Right? And again, you will need big data capability here because across the different parts of your content, and when you integrate with your engage and discover phases, you will actually need to sort of crunch a lot of big data, and you'll have to be able to do that in a distributed real-time mode. For your, again, the buy phase or the actual transactional phase is simpler. You do need online transaction processing capabilities, and you need business reliability here. So this is where you need to build security, you need to build always on 24/7 availability, you need sort of redundant databases, all of that you need to make business reliable systems. Right? And again, on the engage part, it's very similar to your discover part, where social media and sort of data integration are high, and again, you would need business intelligence capability and big data capability. So that's how the technology requirements kind of fall together. That brings me to the final comment that I wanted to make and kind of talk about some of my experiences in trying to do this. So I kind of have tried to put everything that I can think of in 3 key sort of directives or sort of major points that we need to keep in mind, right? So the first point is, do not try to get all of these aspects into one platform. Right? So one of the common pitfalls that I've seen is people try to build one platform or one technology for all, right? So you try to say, I will have a single platform, and that will be both the best OLTP system and the best social media integrated site in the world, right? That's very difficult to do because each of these need different kind of technologies, they need different capabilities, and if you try to build everything into one platform or a single stack, for example, it becomes very challenging, and you have to then start sort of balancing between different capabilities, and you have to give up the best capabilities, or basically you would not be able to get the best of breed for each of those. So don't try to bring everything into one platform. That's not necessary. Let each of these areas be driven by their own platforms, which have strengths in the area that you need. Let the social media and the discover phases be on platforms that are good, right? You would need distributed big data systems built maybe on the cloud in Hadoop, or using NoSQL databases and all that in this kind of a situation, right? But it does not mean that you need that same platform for your OLTP system. Right? So that's what I'm trying to say here. Your OLTP system, your buy system might be completely different set of technologies and platforms compared to your to your discover system, and that's okay. I mean, you don't need to have a single platform. The key here is you have to build a fabric model to integrate the data and the services across all these platforms, because like we saw before, the whole power of this thing comes when you integrate the data and the experiences and the sort of intelligence that you're building across these different areas of your customer lifecycle, right? So that is basically the key here. How do you integrate it into a fabric? And that's why I've used the term fabric here. And at PySys also, we kind of we call this the fusion fabric, because the banking platform is called the fusion, or the banking product line is called the fusion product line. So our fabric is called the fusion fabric. But the goal here is that it is not. Remember, I'm not calling it ESB, Enterprise Services Bus, or a messaging framework because of a very specific reason, that it is not a close coupled or it is not a synchronous integrated model. It is just a loose coupled fabric which doesn't really constrain the different parts of your engagement model, but it allows you to seamlessly exchange data and services across these different pieces. So you have to carefully design and develop a fabric across the different stacks that you're building for each of the areas of your product. If you can do that well, you will be able to harness the power across all of these different areas or all of the different platforms that are serving the different parts of the customer engagement model, and use that data to drive discovery, to drive exploration, to drive engagement, to get more buy, right? So that's the whole goal, right? How do you get more people to buy your product? So that's, in a nutshell, the message I wanted to get across. And there are other experiences that I have gained in trying to do these kind of things, like it is difficult for different product teams to kind of buy into this kind of model, right? Because you're asking people to sort of come to a common goal across different, everybody thinks that their product or their product line is the best, right? People running the OLTP systems will say, oh, our product is doing great. If I kind of try to think about social media, or if I try to think about big data, I will get distracted. It's not the best thing to do for me. So I don't want to bother about the discover phase. Let me do what I want, you do whatever you want, right? So that kind of thing will happen. But that's where we need sort of big picture thinkers, leaders to come in and make sure everybody understands this and sort of builds towards a common goal and builds towards a common long-term product strategy roadmap, which sort of makes them future-proof. So that's all I had to say. That's the message I wanted to take across, and I think that's the end of my presentation.
Thanks for the insightful presentation, Sandeep. Let's quickly take up the questions now. I would request you to read out the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to your insights. So are you able to see the questions coming into you?
Sure, let me try to do that. I'm actually, okay, hold on a minute. Okay, let's see. So I do have a lot of questions here. Let me see how many we can run through. How much time do we have, Radhana?
Exactly 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I have a question here which says, how is the customer lifecycle management different from CRM? So the best way I would respond to that is that it is not different. CRM is actually sort of a view into the whole customer lifecycle, right? So your CRM or your CRM team, for example, is able to see what is happening across the different pieces of your life cycle, right? They are able to see what kind of engagement you're having with the customer, what kind of products, for example, nowadays CRM can see the click data on their website, right? So what are the things the customer is clicking on, so they can see the discovery phase. And then obviously they have all the data about the buy side, right? What has the customer bought? What kind of things are they buying? So CRM has a sort of integrated dashboard view across all the different phases of the life cycle. But that's a result of building products which cater to all of the areas of the life cycle, right? So your CRM is sort of using data from different parts of the product life cycle to make sure that they serve their customer best. But your CRM cannot run that part of the life cycle, right? Your CRM system cannot really full, if you don't have a great platform and a technology strategy which can kind of drive data across different parts of this life cycle, your CRM obviously will show you that you're not doing a great job of engaging or managing your customers, but the CRM system cannot help because the CRM's job is to report. Its job is not to run the life cycle, if I can put it that way. Hope that kind of makes the difference clear. The second question is about concerning social media integration with the sectors that have sensitive data to individuals, how the security is going to evolve in this area of technology and integration. So like I said, we don't have time to talk about the very specific details, but this is a very important point, right? I mean, the more closely you engage with the customer, the more data you have about the customer. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind, right? When I used to go and just eat at a restaurant and come back in the traditional model, the restaurant had very little details or sort of private details about me. But today, if I go in and I have a registered account on Zomato.com, I'm eating at different restaurants and reporting on them and rating them, and I'm also maybe making some online payments and all that. The site now has a lot more data about what are my favorite restaurants, what are my eating patterns, what kind of food do I like, my credit card details, maybe my home address, telephone number, maybe everything, right? So it's very important for you to keep that in mind and to figure out how best to manage the security angle. But again, we are not talking about specifics here. In general, that question is very valid. Security becomes a very important part of the technology strategy because the more close you get to the customer, the more intimate and sensitive data you're gathering. So that's what I would say, that yes, it has to be catering to that, and it is an area of technology integration, but how you do that or what technologies or what methodologies you use to do that has to be driven by the technologies you're using or the products you're building and the kind of areas you're working in, right? For example, at least in banking, I can tell you that that's one of the top requirements. But if you are only doing something like, let me give you a good example, maybe a cab booking site like, I forgot the name of that site, which kind of allows you to book cabs and track the cabs nearer you. Those kind of sites may not need that much security, right? Because you're not putting financial data there. But obviously, a banking site will need much more. So it's driven by the kind of area you're in. Okay, the third question here is, let me expand this. What are the technologies that you recommend for each of these steps? Okay, that's sort of a difficult one to answer because I don't want to be sort of recommending any technology or sort of propagating any technology. But like I said, remember that each of these areas needs different capabilities, right? And the technology you would choose would be driven by many other factors, right? So number one, obviously, is the cost factor, right? If you are a startup and you're looking for technologies in these areas, you obviously have very good, robust open sources in all of these areas. So you would maybe choose an open source technology. If you are a big corporate with a lot of partnerships, with sort of technology partners, cross-sell and upsell relationships with your technology partners and all that, then it becomes a different ball game, right? Then you are kind of looking at what does your technology provider provide you in this area. If I am an IBM partner and I need an OLTP database, I would obviously go to DB2, for example, right? But if I'm a startup and I need an OLTP, I might use MySQL. So your exact technology choices would kind of depend on what your situation is, what are the strengths that you really need for example, if I really need a very highly scalable system, I would have to look at a technology which can scale, and I might not be able to choose a technology which is less costly but cannot scale to that model. I might, if my needs can be served by a cloud model, I might use a cloud technology rather than buying any of the or installing any of these technologies in-house. Right? So it's a very complex question, and it needs to be kind of decided on based on all the areas around this whole question. Right? So like I said, I cannot specifically recommend any of these technologies because it's not really a single choice. It's kind of very complicated, depends on a lot of factors, depends on whether you want to go with closed source or open source, depends on what kind of partnerships you have, depends on what strengths you're kind of wanting to get from this. Sometimes it even depends on what kind of capabilities you have in-house, right? If your product development team knows Java, obviously you cannot choose maybe PHP as your technology to build your product. If the team that you have knows, let's say, one of the NoSQL databases, let's say they are very hands-on with CouchDB, you obviously would go with that, even though you might feel that, I mean, even though there are other similar document databases or NoSQL databases, you would choose the one which kind of suits the people you have. So there are different angles to this decision, right? It's very difficult to say, take this over that, because every circumstance is different. So I think with that, we have kind of run out of time. So Aradhana, any closing points that you want to make?
So like you mentioned, we are already crossing the time. So if you would like to sum up the session for today, you can do it now.
Okay, so I think I'll go back to my bottom line. The bottom line is be aware that in the future, every product will have to engage with the customer rather than just sell to the customer. And as we go towards an industry, or rather towards a world led by integrated Internet of Things, always online, multi-channel world, this will become more and more important. Right? So keep that in mind and design and architect for that, and hopefully you will not go wrong, and you will have a great product which will stand true 10 years down the line. So that's my closing line.
I'm really thankful to our guest speaker today for conducting this wonderful webinar. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of the webinar will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Sandeep, for taking the time out and having us. I hope you have a great evening ahead.
Thank you, Radhanath. Thank you, everybody. I think this was, I think, a great experience, and hopefully everybody took away something of use from the session.
Definitely, Sandeep. We will close now. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.